We're so back. Okay, so I'm back after a while, and I want to talk about what I think is one of the more pernicious myths in American politics right now, and that's that Bernie Sanders had the 2016 primary stolen from him by the Democratic National Convention. And actually, what inspired me to make this video was this interview that Graham Plattner recently did with a voter in Maine. So I got my kombucha. Let's get into it.
When we set out on this campaign, I was fully convinced that working people in this state have a lot more in common with each other than they might think. We often find ourselves surprised to realize that we have almost everything in common. And in the spirit of that, we're going to sit down this morning with a Republican voter from Machias and try to find out what we agree on.
Yeah, they asked me earlier, a minute ago, why I got into politics, or how long, if I'd always been involved in politics. I haven't. 10 years ago, Trump decided to run, and he spoke my language. And I voted for him again. I voted for him 3 times because I wanted to see how he was going to continue, because I thought he was doing okay. And then this turn, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to vote for him this time, but he's got 1 year.
The problem is when you vote for him, you give him 4 years, not 1.
He's not only not done what I thought he was going to do, he's gone not completely the opposite direction, but
Pretty far.
Yeah, he's gone pretty far
Which
beyond
was completely predictable.
on what, and it's not good for the country.
Right.
None of what he's done is good for the country, and that's what I wanted.
We're gonna get to it, I promise.
I hate to say, I'm not going to say I was wrong, because I don't like to say I was wrong, but I will
everything that's wrong with this country is people can't admit that they're wrong.
admit, yeah, I'm questioning pretty hard on things.
Trump came along and told a lot of us that something that we knew to be true was actually true, which is that we live in a system that's stealing from us. And it's funny. I'm from Sullivan, so a lot of my friends are like 3-time Trump voters, and I didn't vote for Trump, but I very much understand why people did. And then I talk to friends of mine who don't live in Maine or don't live in rural areas, who are always just like, I don't get it. I'm like, man, everybody down here feels like they're getting robbed, and Trump came along and told us that, one, you are getting robbed. Meanwhile, everybody else is telling us that everything's good. They're like, the system's great and we should protect it. And Trump said, the system is screwing you, because it is, and we all see it every single day. I was not surprised back in 2016.
Here we go.
I had friends of mine who were like, I either like Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump. And I know a lot of people who are like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it makes sense to me. It does, in the sense that it's because both of them were like, this whole thing is screwed up.
Blow it up.
Blow it up and do something different. And I think that was the message, and it's a compelling message, and one that, frankly, I think that, that's my message too. This thing is, in many ways, irreparably broken, and
Bernie's the reason why I really became 100% cynical, because in 2016,
Yep.
well, both times, there's 2 times that he's been just tossed aside.
Yep.
He had the nomination and
agreed.
just got replaced.
Yep. Well, that's
Okay, so that's the whole reason for this video. This idea that Bernie Sanders was robbed by the DNC in 2016 and 2020. So for the sake of this video, I'm only going to stick to 2016 because he did better in 2016 than 2020. And before I get into it, I do want to read some of these comments, because remember, this is from Graham Plattner for Senate. So this is his video channel. And it says, refusing to admit that you're wrong isn't strength, it's weakness. 100%. He spoke my language should be a major point of self-reflection. I won't say I'm wrong because I hate to say I'm wrong. That sums it up perfectly. No self-awareness, no humility, and no respect for others. Perfect example of, I want to fuck over people who I thought was lesser than me until it became me. Yeah, so average American voter right here. However, you need the average American voter to win. But anyway, let's get into the heart of this. So before we even go further, let's just explain what a superdelegate is in regards to the Democratic nomination process. So In American politics, a superdelegate is a delegate to a presidential nominating convention who is seated automatically. In the DNC, superdelegates, described in the formal party rules as party leaders and elected officials, make up slightly under 15% of all delegates. So basically what happens is when there's a primary in the state, the voters vote, and whoever wins gets pledged delegates, right? The delegates for that candidate then go to that counts towards like their delegate count. And unpledged delegates are the super delegates who represent party leaders and elected officials. So it's kind of, and they're able to vote for whoever they want. So it's kind of like these higher up elite members of the party who are able to choose which candidate they want to vote for. And I don't really like this, to be honest. I think it should just be the voters who decide. And we'll get into this further, but before we go into it more, I just want to make sure we all know what superdelegates are. So let's get into the history of the 2016 Democratic Party presidential primaries. So with this map right here, well, hang on now. You can see, so green represents Bernie Sanders. You can see he kind of got like the north and like the west. And then this the gold color is Hillary Clinton. She obviously got the west coast and the south and northeast. That's how the process worked, right? And so like these are the states that they won. If you notice, she really did get the South, and the black vote is huge in the Democratic primary because you absolutely need it to win. And I don't know, it seems like she got it, not just in the South, but California, Illinois, New York. You know, it's unfortunately Bernie Sanders just didn't get enough support. That's kind of the crux of this video. He lost because he just didn't have the voters. You know, sorry. But anyway, let's go into some important state primaries. So the Iowa caucus is a huge, because it's the first state that has their primary, which was held on Monday, February 1st, 2016. And as you can see, it was won by Hillary Clinton. And you can see the breakdown by county. Again, the gold is Hillary Clinton and the green is Bernie Sanders. So Hillary Clinton starts off winning the first state, right? Another big race was New Hampshire. Now this went to Bernie Sanders, as you can see. I mean, it's right next to Vermont. He won big. He got every county with 15 delegates, and then Hillary Clinton got 9. Another big state was Nevada. This went to Hillary Clinton again. You can see the breakdown here. Georgia, another huge state, and this is kind of telling because Georgia is a big deal, both in the primaries and in the general election. And look how dominant Hillary Clinton was. See the dark color? That means she got more than 90% of the vote in these counties, and all that Bernie Sanders got was here in the 50 to 60% range. Okay, so she's just dominating Georgia, dominating the South. Another big one, South Carolina. And look at this. Bernie Sanders didn't win anything. He got only 14 delegates. Hillary Clinton got 39. She won almost, or over 73% of the total vote. And so, you know, she's winning the votes. And then when it comes to the overall primary results, I think these graphs are really good. You can see these pie charts of all the different states of, you know, green is Bernie Sanders, yellow / gold is Hillary Clinton, and you can see the split in different states. Here you can see, so these are so this one right here are the pledged delegates. These are what the voters decided on, and then down here is this map below it is when you include the super delegates that, like I mentioned earlier. So as you can see, compare these two, like compare these two maps of the states. They don't really look that much different. I know Wyoming went from Sanders to Clinton when you add in the super delegates, but what else changed? Indiana, maybe? Like, it's the map is basically the same. You know, even when you include the super delegates who did favor Hillary Clinton, it's not really all that different. I mean, look, when you break it down by county, you can see. And then in total, when you look at count the delegates, so this was the amount to win for the nomination. Look, I mean, I'm sorry, but Hillary Clinton just got more votes, and that's a big deal. That is kind of why she won, is because she got the voters. Now let's get into some news articles that came out in the time, and this was on April 27th, 2016, and you can see, what was it, the title? Sanders to lay off staff after Tuesday loss. And I believe this was Super Tuesday. Oh my God, where's that coming from? The one thing I hate about news sites is those auto-playing ads. So a day after Bernie Sanders won only one of 5 Northeastern primary contests against Hillary Clinton, his campaign will lay off more than 200 staffers in an effort to concentrate his remaining resources on the upcoming contest. So, even back in, when was this, April? Yeah, April 27th. He's already laying off staff because it's not going well for him. And then here, June 8th, 2016, Clinton secures a majority of pledged delegates. So again, the pledged delegates are the ones that the voters choose. So she already has a majority of the voters' choices on June 8th. And then here, this is July 26th. Hillary Clinton breaks the glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton made history Tuesday. Delegates at the DNC in Philadelphia formally nominated Hillary Clinton for president, a historic moment, making the former First Lady the first woman in history to be named the presidential nominee of a major political party. So this is, even after the superdelegates are counted and all that, now she is the nominee, right? And then, in addition to that, we have Barack Obama endorsing Hillary Clinton in video. Obama! I don't think we need to watch it because, you get the idea. I feel like this video is already going to be decently long. But you can see that Hillary Clinton tweeted, "President Obama endorses Hillary. I don't think there's ever been someone so qualified to hold this office." Which, yeah, kind of was true. First Lady, Senate, and Secretary of State. That's kind of a lot. But Obama endorsed presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton on Thursday. And this came out June 9th. So a little bit before she secured the nomination. Obama endorses her. That's a pretty big deal, right? Furthermore, after she becomes the nominee, even Bernie Sanders says he will vote for Hillary Clinton, right? So he endorses her too. If Bernie Sanders really thought that the election was stolen from him, why would he then endorse Hillary Clinton, right? I think he knows that he lost, so he's not the one saying that it was stolen from him. It was, people around him and people who voted for him who couldn't accept the loss and then decided to say that he had the election stolen from him. But he himself even endorsed Hillary Clinton. Like, come on. So now we're getting into the question of whether or not there was any DNC bias or whether or not they rigged the election against Bernie Sanders. Oh, wait, what? Rigged? Did you say it was rigged? Okay, anyway, here are the latest, most damaging things in the DNC's leaked emails. Thousands of leaked emails have sealed the fate of Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz's uneven 5-year plus tenure as DNC chair. So this was on WikiLeaks. They got the hacked emails from the DNC and the RNC, by the way. They got the Republican emails too, but they chose to only leak the DNC emails because they're a partisan leaking organization that wanted to damage the Democrats. So many of the most damaging emails suggest the committee was actively trying to undermine Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. Basically, all these examples come late in the primary after Hillary Clinton was already headed for victory, but they belie the National Party Committee's stated neutrality in the race, even at a late stage. So yeah, fundamentally, I want to go through a few more articles and go a little bit more in depth, but it is true the DNC was biased in favor of Hillary Clinton. Like the people who worked there probably wanted her to win, but ultimately, it's not as if they changed people's votes. The voters still chose Hillary Clinton, and that's why she became the nominee. And you can see a few things, like they found emails where they were talking about Bernie Sanders' religion, talking about whether or not he's an atheist. Most Jews are atheists, Wasserman Schultz calls top Sanders aide a damn liar and says Sanders has no understanding of the party. And the thing is I think they say it here, Sanders, for what it's worth, wasn't a Democrat before entering the Democratic primary. He caucused with the party, but has long been an independent. And yeah, that is the thing. Part of the reason why the DNC might be biased towards Clinton is because Bernie Sanders isn't officially a Democrat. He is an independent, but he does caucus with the Democrats because obviously he's not going to be a Republican, and there's only 2 parties in this country. So, yeah, maybe they are a little biased because he's not one of them. And this one might be kind of bad. A Clinton lawyer gives DNC strategy advice on Sanders. So the Sanders campaign alleged that the Clinton campaign was improperly using its joint fundraising committee with the DNC to benefit itself. Clinton campaign lawyer Mark Elias offered the DNC guidance on how to respond. So, so plotting a narrative about how Sanders' campaign failed. Mark Putinbach suggested a narrative that Sanders was never had his act together, that his campaign was a mess. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. They wish he would end it. They called his sympathizers a Bernie bro. I mean, that's not really very substantial. I mean, I don't know why they're emailing this. Like, it honestly comes across as kind of unprofessional. They're criticizing Obama for lack of fundraising, et cetera, et cetera. However, like, this indicates bias and a preference amongst the DNC, but none of this actually, like, is evidence that they rigged it. Like, come on. Like, did you really think that they, like, changed people's votes or, like, did something that makes Sanders the nominee, to prevent him from becoming the nominee? They can have their bias, but, you know, the DNC is a partisan organization, right? I mean, they are a political party. And within the party, they're going to have their preferences for who they want to be elected. I mean, I don't know if that's really a surprise. I think they should be neutral, to be fair. It should be 100% of the voters, and I don't like the superdelegates. I think they should get rid of that. But neither their bias nor the superdelegates prevented Bernie Sanders from getting the nominee, or from being the nominee. What prevented him was the voters. You know, Clinton just got the most votes. So here we have another one. So what was in the DNC email leak? So this is, again, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She resigned. WikiLeaks released 20,000 DNC emails. So this is kind of the same thing. Question his faith. This is kind of the same article, actually. Favoring donors, et cetera, et cetera. And no, this article, no, the DNC didn't rig the primary for Hillary Clinton. So this week, Donna Brazile, the interim chair of the DNC during the 2016 primary, reignited a major controversy regarding the presidential primary between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. So in an excerpt from her book, she argues the DNC provided Clinton with control over important decisions in exchange for financial support. In response, other actors, including Elizabeth Warren and Trump, have argued that this DNC rigged the primary process against Sanders. I think that's far too strong of a claim, because in reality, the situation is considered far more complex. So two things are true. The DNC preferred Hillary Clinton over Sanders, and yeah, that's what I said, and provided her campaign with power over the committee in exchange for financial support. Which, yeah, they shouldn't do that. But is that evidence that it's rigged? I mean, it's just, the simple fact it's rigged is just too strong of a term. So Brazile writes that the fundraising agreement signed by the DNC and the Clinton campaign specified that in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control the finances, strategy, and all the money raised. Her campaign had the right to refusal of who would be the party communications director, and would make final decisions about all other staff. So, okay, staffing, party's finances and strategy does seem like it's, you know, actually pretty bad. Like, they probably really should not be doing that. It should be neutral, and they just let the voters decide. You know, this is supposed to be democracy. Okay. As Brazile notes, it's common for candidates to gain control of the national committee after they win the presidential nomination. It's less common, though not unheard of, which is true. I think there is precedent for this. A national committee to align with a candidate before he or she wins the nomination. Because again, the DNC is a private organization. They don't have to be neutral. I think they should, but they don't have to be. And one example is in 1992, the Republican primary, when incumbent George H.W. Bush faced a primary challenge from Pat Buchanan, the RNC stated that the chairman is 100% behind George Bush, and so is the committee. Oh, look, the RNC does it too. So let's scroll down. This doesn't mean the 2016 primaries were rigged against Sanders. Throughout the primary process, the Sanders campaign made several complaints about how the DNC disadvantaged them. Some issues such as timing of the primary contest or how the delegates were divided. Clinton probably received some benefits. However, as political scientist Josh Putnam has noted, the rules were decided in 2014, well before anyone expected a Clinton-Sanders primary contest. So the very rules that allow the DNC to have a bias were put in place before Sanders was even a contender against Hillary Clinton. So other complaints are more valid. I think these are kind of things I've already addressed. But whether the DNC actually succeeded in this is far from clear. Clinton received 3.7 million more votes than Sanders did, and it is questionable that this was due solely to the timing of the debates. For this reason, there is an important difference between the DNC's preferring one of the presidential candidates and it rigging the nomination process. In short, two things can be true simultaneously. The DNC tried to help the Clinton campaign, but this did not have much impact on whether Clinton won the nomination. And I think that really sums it up quite well. And then, additionally, we have Wiley v. DNC Services Corp. So this was a class action lawsuit filed in 2016 against the DNC and Debbie Wasserman Schultz by a group of Bernie Sanders supporters, claiming they had been defrauded in the 2016 Democratic primaries. Their suit was dismissed by Judge William Sloch of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida for lack of standing. The judge found that none of the plaintiffs had claimed to have donated to the DNC on the basis of the promises contained in the DNC charter, and therefore the plaintiffs could not claim to have incurred damages. So, they tried to sue, and they still lost. So, okay, so I think this really just kind of sums it all up. I think we're getting kind of close to the end here. The main takeaway is that, no, Bernie Sanders didn't have the primary stolen from him. The voters just voted for Hillary Clinton. And then in 2020, it's basically the same thing, except Biden won by even more that time around, and Sanders lost by even more. And look, I voted for him both times, okay? I wanted Bernie Sanders to win, but I have to admit, okay, look, my candidate lost. What can I say? The thing is when you lose, you have to look at why, and I think you just simply have to convince voters of the candidate and of the policies that the candidate advocates for. And I guess the country just isn't as far left as Bernie Sanders is. Look, I'm a progressive. I want to see him win, but most people in the country didn't, and they chose a more moderate Democrat. And that's just how it is. You've got to convince people of what you want. And I will say there is something very ironic about this. This idea that it was rigged against Bernie Sanders and that's why he lost is very similar to what Donald Trump said in 2020 when Joe Biden won the election against him, when he said it was rigged against him and they cheated and stole the election from him. Is this not kind of the same thing? They can't accept a loss, whether it's, to be fair, this is a very small section of the online left and of Bernie Sanders supporters, but there is a similarity between that and Trump and his supporters where they say, if we lose, it's because they cheated, right? There's no way that you could ever win or lose legitimately. And I can't help but notice there is a kind of a parallel there. And I don't think we should fall into that. I think we should be smart. I think we just have to acknowledge that the voters chose the other candidate. It sucks, but hey, what can you do? Anyway, this is Info Addict. I intend to be uploading more content soon. Also, on my other channel, Transportation Addict, we'll have more content as well if you're into public transportation and travel content. So either way, stay tuned. More videos coming. See you next time.